America's Heartland is made possible by the American Farm Bureau Foundation for Agriculture, dedicated to building greater awareness and understanding of agriculture through education and engagement. More information at agfoundation.org. Farm Credit, financing agriculture and rural America since 1916. Farm Credit is cooperatively owned by America's farmers and ranchers. Learn more at farmcredit.com. The United Soybean Board, whose Common Ground program creates conversations to help consumers get the facts about farming and food. There's more at findourcommonground.com. The Fund for Agriculture Education, a fund created by KBIE to support America's Heartland programming. Contributors include the following.
Hi, I'm Jason Schultz. Coming up, have you ever wondered what happens to crops left in the field after harvest that aren't quite good enough to make it to market? Well, unfortunately, oftentimes they're left there to rot and they go to waste. Coming up, I'll take you to Florida, where farmers are stepping up to help out local food banks by bringing that produce to help feed the hungry.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gardner. We're going to spin you a story about wool this time. We'll take you to Kentucky, where a Heartland family has decided to preserve a heritage dating back centuries.
Hi, I'm Kristen Samos. It's where agriculture meets the internet. We'll meet a farm couple whose love of the land is shared with a growing fan base in the blogosphere.
Hi there, I'm Rob Stewart, and this beautiful draft horse's name is Gale. We're taking you west this time on America's Heartland. We'll sit down for a campfire experience, and we'll hitch up a team of horses for a trip back in time, Arizona agritourism style. That's all coming up next, right here on America's Heartland.
You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's a love for the country and a pride in the brand. In America's heartland, living close to the land.
There's no doubt that American agriculture is the most productive in the world, but even in all that abundance of food, there are still many folks facing hunger issues every day. And here in Florida, that's definitely true, but fortunately, there's a cooperative effort underway involving farmers that helps meet that need.
The cucumber harvest is well underway this morning at Long and Scott Farms in Central Florida.
That's a good one.
Yeah. But these cukes will never make it to your supermarket. And the folks picking the produce aren't farm workers. They're volunteers doing what's called gleaning, harvesting produce that's perfectly fine but not marketable.
So what are you looking for when you're picking these out?
Well, you want to get the ones that aren't split, and these are all still pretty healthy looking. They're hiding underneath the leaves here, but you can find them in between.
It's pretty amazing that the farmer isn't planning to pick this field anymore.
Yeah, it's just awesome that he's donating the rest of this crop to a good cause.
The impact of this act of kindness grows with every 5-pound bag on the pile, and it goes beyond the field.
There's pickles out there on those vines. There's a lot of good ones still left. Chances are there are not enough good ones to make it feasible for us to go back through the field, but there's still a lot of good fruit on those vines that's edible and can feed a lot of folks.
This is the sorting shed at Long and Scott Farms, where workers sort cucumbers by shape and size. The long green produce will be shipped to markets up north or end up getting pickled, but many of the cucumbers aren't the right size for pickling.